Welcome to episode 142 of the Family Answer Man podcast, where today we're talking about codependent psychopaths and intimate partner violence from a biblical worldview. I'm your host, David Orges, and I'm here with Dr. Mark Crosby. He is a pastor, educator, mental health professional, and the resident expert here on the Family Answer Man podcast. Family Answer Man is not a therapy session. We can't give you specific advice to your unique circumstances, but we do believe that spiritual and mental health are very, very important. So we encourage you to seek professional counsel for your circumstances. Before we jump in, if you'd hit that notification bell and subscribe to the YouTube channel, or if you're listening on a podcast app, if you would rate and review the show, that helps us out a lot. And as always, you can help the Family Answer Man community grow by just inviting your friends and your family to join you on the journey of building stronger, healthier, and happier families. Well, Dr. Mark, good to be here with you today.
Good to be here.
Big title,
yes.
Big episode, Codependency, Psychopaths, and Intimate Partner Violence.
Yes.
Man, that's a lot going on there.
A lot.
Big topic. Is that something that I think those are buzzwords that people have heard, but is that something that people you feel like have a good grasp on?
You know, I think all of us, to some degree, know someone or maybe been in a situation where one of these three has been a part of our lives, meaning there's the codependent person, we'll talk about them more in a moment, that they're basically are good people. And by the way, as well, I'll unpack this in a moment, codependency is not an official diagnosis, more of a description. But it's generally a good person who wants to help other people, wants to be a blessing, wants to make life better, wants to maybe fix things. Unfortunately, for some people, and mainly for many women, they want to fix, their troubled husband or their troubled boyfriend. I want to make him better. I can change him is the mindset they have. And that's, again, a very noble thing, very noble goal. I don't want to discount that, but it's, again, very problematic in many cases. And there's the psychopath, and we'll talk about them more in a moment as well. But the psychopath is basically the person, as we have seen and heard, has no real sense of responsibility, is very impulsive, doesn't go by the social norms, doesn't believe the laws apply to them, doesn't have any real sense of conscientiousness when it comes to the feelings of other people, and the list could go on. And then there's intimate partner violence, which is basically a description as well of what happens in a home where there's a lot of violence, where there's a lot of abuse, where there's a lot of maybe even neglect, and where people are being hurt physically, definitely emotionally and mentally, both the spouse, in many cases, the children. And so there's just a lot here. And the thing is that many times we in the church don't want to address this. We don't want to look at this. We don't want to believe that this is going on actually in our community of faith. But it is a reality. And it's something that unfortunately many look the other way and kind of hope and pray it's not there. And if we don't talk about it, it never happened. And so these are things that, again, are very troublesome and problematic in many of our communities of faith. And if we don't expose it, if we don't deal with it, if we don't recognize it for what it is, then what will happen is it will continue to grow and expand in our churches, among our families, and again becomes even more problematic to our community.
Yeah, especially as the church is supposed to be a safe place for people to come and connect with the Lord and be in a place where they can connect with other Christians.
Right.
And so this is definitely you can see how it would be a big problem, especially if the church isn't there to step up and advocate for those that are in need.
Exactly.
So that leads us to our question for the day. And if you have a question that you'd like to have answered, you can always email us. The email address is familyanswerman@liveoak.church, familyanswerman@liveoak.church. And here is the question that we have for today. It says, my coworker came to work with bruises that she tried to cover up. She later told me that her husband had beat her up. And then she said she can't leave him because she loves him and that he needs her. I'm afraid for her and for her kids. And what's worse is that he is a leader in our church. How does this happen? What can be done and what can I do?
Well, so again, this is something that, again, most churches, most pastors don't want to confront. They don't want to accept. They don't want to believe is happening, in their community of faith. But unfortunately, it's there. And the more we cover it up, the more we try to hide it, the worse it will get. So again, let's first of all, let's identify some of our terms. As we said before, codependency is not an official diagnosis. It's more of a description. It's the need to be needed, if you had to sum it up. Other psychotherapists may give a different definition, but ultimately I will argue it's the need to be needed. It's people that find purpose in rescuing others, helping others, going the extra mile for others, bringing change for others. So again, a codependent person in many cases is a pretty good person. Professionally, these are our pastors. Okay, a lot of pastors are codependent. They need to be needed. These are some of our teachers, who go the extra mile for their students, which again, God bless them. Counselors, nurses, physicians, social workers, in some cases attorneys, and the list could go on. But people who want to help others, people who want to make life better and help others get better at life. And so these are generally good people. However, if this goes too far, these are the people who are taken advantage of.
Okay.
These are the people who are abused, they're used, people put extra expectations on them. Hey, pastor, why didn't you come to my house at 3 o'clock in the morning? Because, I had a bad cough and you needed to be there to pray for me. Hey, Miss Jane Doe, teacher of the year, why didn't you stay after school until 9 o'clock and help my kid with his homework?
Yeah.
And so the list could go on. So they put extra expectations. Or people put extra expectations on these individuals, and some of them, try to live up to those expectations. So the pastor always gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to Miss McGillicuddy's and pray over her because she has a bad cough or whatever it may be. And so some people, again, like psychopaths, can spot a codependent a mile away.
Okay, and codependents have a hard time just saying no.
They have a hard time saying no. They have a hard time not living up to expectations. They have a hard time not trying to help others. They have a hard time not trying to be all things to all people, so to speak. And so the psychopath sees this and they take advantage of the codependent. Now, a psychopath is what is called officially someone with antisocial personality disorder. We've talked about them before. But basically, if you want a description of the psychopath or the person with antisocial personality disorder, they're the ones who violate the rights of others. They don't care about your rights. They are deceitful. They will, as the old saying goes, smile at you in the front and stab you in the back. Yeah. They're deceitful. They're impulsive. They're irritable. They're very aggressive in many ways. Sometimes they're reckless. In many cases, they're irresponsible. They lack remorse. So if they do something that does bother you, hurt you, upset you, they don't care. They don't care. Get over it kind of thing. And many times they're violent. Now, again, as the old saying goes, not every psychopath or a person with antisocial personality disorder is a serial killer, but every serial killer is a psychopath.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, this is very important to note. So you have your codependent, you have your psychopath, and then you have the intimate partner violence. And people are going, so what does that mean exactly? Well, that's any kind of physical violence, sexual violence, substance misuse, emotional or psychological violence that occurs in the home where there's constant screaming and yelling and intimidation and threats, and you're not sure what's going to happen next, and basically keeping things from you, playing mind games that is hurtful and painful. You say yes, but you meant no, and I really didn't say that, and accusing and all these things in ways that, again, are very detrimental. So it's emotional, psychological. It's also coercive control. I'm going to make you do things, and if you don't do it what I tell you to do, you're going to pay a really steep penalty. If you don't cook the way I say to cook, then I'm going to put your hand in boiling water kind of thing. If you don't cut the grass exactly the way I do, I'm going to make you cut the grass with scissors or something along those lines. So it's very, very intimidating. It's coercive. Sometimes it's economic control. I'm amazed at the number of wives who've said to me over the years, in some cases husbands, that, my husband gives me $100 to spend every week, and that's all I can spend. And I got to buy groceries, and I got to pay the utility bill, I got to put gas in my car, and I got to pay the kids, lunch money. And I'm going, wait a minute, whoa.
Right.
You're not a little sister. Okay?
Yeah, this isn't we're on the Dave Ramsey plan and,
right.
and I have my envelope. This is a control issue.
This is I'm controlling all the money. I will declare how much money you get. I will give you a little bit of an allowance, and you have to spend that, and anything else you have to come begging for. So that is a type of coercive control. That's a type of intimate partner violence where, again, economically, you're trying to make a person suffer or maybe have control over them in a way that intimidates them. So again, family violence is domestic violence. Family violence is coercive control. Family violence is child maltreatment. Treating the kids with a sense of abuse or neglect or being cruel. It is elder abuse in some cases. Maybe if your mother-in-law lives with you or something like that, or a grandparent lives with you, and you abuse them. That's family violence. Pet abuse. When you are cruel to an animal, especially a family pet, and you're cruel to that animal and you enjoy being cruel to that animal, you have some sense of satisfaction being cruel to that animal, that's a form of family violence, especially if it's a favorite pet of your spouse and or one of your kids. So here are some stats that we need to be mindful of. Here's some stats that I think a lot of pastors may not be aware of, some stats that a lot of teachers may not be aware of, and that is this. Intimate partner violence occurs 1 in 4 women. 1 in 4 women experience some form of intimate partner violence that we just mentioned.
Wow.
1 in 7 men experience intimate partner violence. And the highest percentage or the greatest population of women that experience intimate partner violence are between the ages of 15 to 35.
15 to 35.
So what you have is, that's why it's called intimate partner violence. You have the 16-year-old girl who is dating, the football player or whomever, and all of a sudden he becomes abusive. All of a sudden he says, if you don't do this or do that, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to hurt, your dog. I'm going to beat up your little brother. I'm going to something along these lines. And so all the way up to age 35. Now, for some reason, between age 35 and 70, we see a decline in the intimate partner violence. Maybe because at this age and stage of life, women are more willing to leave, they're more willing to walk away, they're more willing to take a stand. But around the age of 70, we see it pick back up again. 70 and older, we see intimate partner violence picking up again. Maybe because most women realize, hey, I'm limited in where I can go, my resources, my kids have moved away, whatever it may be. So that's important to note. Also, 1 in 4 children under the age of 5 live with a mom who has experienced intimate partner violence.
Wow.
So 1 in 4 children under the age of 5. So preschool teachers out there, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about intimate partner violence. We're talking about abuse within the home. And so the percentage is pretty high that if you run a preschool, you're going to have some children there that have experienced intimate partner violence or at least have watched it in their home. 52% of all children have witnessed violence between their parents. So teachers, be aware of this. 52% of all children have witnessed some violence between their parents. So keep in mind, and the point is this, not all violence is the same. Not all violence is the same. You're going to have a spectrum of types of violence, depths of violence, everything from, battery and that sort of thing to, as we said earlier, economic problems, psychological threats, verbal abuse, etc. Now, again, violence on this level is often the result of 3 major things. Number one, mental illness. As you said before, it is the psychopathic person. It is in many cases the narcissist or the borderline. These are personality disorders that a person will bring into maybe some people who have the on stages of schizophrenia. But this mental illness, again, is a part of this abuse. Substance abuse plays a big factor. People who are under the influence of alcohol or other drugs come in this violent rage, and they say things and do things that are very violent. And here's something that we have to be careful of and mindful of when we're helping individuals, and that is violence often escalates after the victim leaves the relationship.
Violence escalates after they leave.
Because what happens is now there's a sense of stalking. There's this sense of the violator realizes they're losing power and control over the victim. And so they're trying to one last surge of intimidation, one last surge of some sort of coercive control, one last surge of trying to take back the power they feel like they've lost. So that's very important to note as well.
Yeah.
So again, mental illness, substance abuse are 2 major factors. Now the emphasis of this, as most of us know, is whenever a person is involved in coercive control, the emphasis is power and control. There's something inside of our sin nature, if you want to use that wants to have power and control over others.
Right.
I want you to do what I want you to do. I want you to say what I want you to say. Preacher, I want you to preach that sermon in less than 15 minutes. I mean that sort of thing. So whenever you hear that kind of verbal control, if you will, there's a sense of I want power and control over you. I've had people tell me, and I've heard other pastors express as well, how church members tell them how they should be dressing.
Yeah.
And I'm going, really? One thing I learned now as a kid is one man should not tell another man how to dress. Okay. But anyway, the point is that there's this emphasis of power and control. There's this emphasis of intimidation. Isolation. The one who's involved in coercive control wants to intimidate you and they want to isolate you. They don't want you going to your mom's. They don't want you telling your dad what's going on. They don't want you telling, the pastor what's going on. They don't want you telling what is happening what's happening with your coworkers. Also, the emphasis once again is emotional abuse and lots of threats. So these are some of the emphasis of a person who is involved in coercive control that's a part of this intimate partner violence. So once again, what is coercive control? If you're just tuning in, we're talking about violence in the home, domestic violence in the home. We're talking about the codependent person and the psychopath. Coercive control basically is a pattern that involves behavior that has as the main objective restricting someone's freedom and autonomy.
So restricting their freedom and autonomy.
They're you're going to do what I tell you to do. You belong to me. You're basically, even though you're my wife or you're my husband, I'm going to treat you like my slave kind of thing. You will do what I tell you to do. You will have what I tell you will have. You will go where I tell you can go. You will spend what I tell you can spend. You will cook what I tell you what you can cook. And the list could go on. And so there's a sense of coercive control that begins to happen. And if a person does not comply, then there's a sense of violence, and there's a sense of punishment, then there's a sense of abuse, then there's a sense of creating some sort of painful environment. It's insidious and it's pernicious. It's insidious and it's pernicious. Again, the goal of the person involved in coercive control is to intimidate you, isolate you, denigrate you, control you, and subordinate you. And the problem is, if you're just tuning in, pastors, you need to hear this, it's going on in your churches. There are men and there are some women in your churches that are doing this to their spouse. Now, for many, it's very stealth. For many, they try to live under the radar, so to speak. For many, they basically have made their wives swear to secrecy, if you will. Don't say anything to anyone. If you do, it'll get even worse. No one will help you. No one will believe you. I'm a leader in the church. I know, no one is going to believe what you say because look at who I am. And so this is the problem that many are seeing. And this is the problem in this question. This woman comes to work with all these bruises. Her friend sees them, and she reveals to her, the person who beat me up was my husband, who's also a leader in the church.
Yeah.
Now, here's the impact on the family. And again, it affects all ages. And I hear a lot of people who say, well, my kid's only 18 months old. He didn't know, she didn't know what was going on, whatever. No, toddlers are impacted by this intimate partner violence.
Yeah.
For example, when you see a toddler that has increased irritability, when you have a toddler who has extreme separation anxiety, they just cannot be away from, the primary parent, if you will. When you have a toddler who goes through emotional distress, when you have a toddler who withdraws from the primarily abusive parent, that is a symptom, if you will, of this coercive control and this domestic violence, this intimate partner violence. For school-age children, if you're just tuning in, teachers hear this. If a child is chronically depressed, lots of anxiety or aggression even, school-age children ages from 6 to 12, this is, again, maybe could be a result of intimate partner violence in the home. Sleep disturbance. The child cannot sleep at home, and so they sleep, at their desk. And the teacher wants to think this child is just not caring, just not concerned, just not attentive. no, teacher, this child may be experiencing intimate partner violence in their home. They cannot sleep at night. And so the school classroom is the only safe place where they feel like they can sleep.
Wow.
Now, many teachers want to think, again, of the student as not caring, being insubordinate, whatever. No, this child is exhausted. And sometimes you might want to unpack that and see what's going on. Poor problem-solving skills. So the child between 6 and 12 maybe has poor problem-solving skills, poor academic skills, because again, they just cannot concentrate. They just cannot remember how to spell, the spelling word. They just cannot solve the math problem. They just cannot, figure out how to, deal with other kids in their classroom. They just struggle because their minds are cognitively just so stressed and strained because of the violence in their home. For teenagers who experience intimate partner violence, mom slapping dad, dad slapping mom, whatever it may be, they become aggressive. So there's aggression there. There's anxiety there. There's behavioral problems. They begin to act out at school. And school problems, again, are paramount because this is the one place where they don't have to worry about themselves being hurt, but they begin to hurt others. Truancy. They quit going to school. They drop out. They go to school and then they leave after the first class period or whatever it may be. Revenge seeking. They come up with ways on how to bring revenge to those at school who have hurt them, bothered them, upset them, stole from them, whatever. And or maybe revenge seeking, how to get back at maybe one of their parents that's causing all the problems through the violence. Social problems. They have a hard time relating to their peers. They have a hard time relating maybe to their boyfriend or girlfriend, and they maybe start acting out and doing what they're seeing at home. They're the ones who slap their girlfriend around. They're the ones who, say something or do something aggressively to their boyfriend. So again, this intimate partner violence in the home spills over, and what happens is the teenager begins to act this out as well.
There are a lot of red flags there that are good, like you said, for teachers especially to know, youth pastors.
Youth pastors, teachers, counselors, beware of this. I don't think we screen, if you will, or ask questions enough to see if there's something that's going on beyond or below the surface. Again, that's called intimate partner violence. We just see, the symptom. Okay, he's sleeping in the classroom. He's acting out. She's truant. Being a delinquent. No, there could be something going on underneath this that needs to be explored.
Yeah. The tendency is to focus on what our area is. If it's student ministry, or it's teaching a class, or if it's running a great practice. And sometimes we need to recognize the flags and look a little deeper, like you said. Absolutely.
So again, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about intimate partner violence. We're talking about domestic violence that happens in the home and how it impacts kids. Also, how does it impact parenting? A parent who's experiencing intimate partner violence, they're being beat up, they're being coerced, they're being, treated, in a very maladaptive sort of way. They will be people who are, again, that are depressed. These people are the ones who experience chronic depression. There's an emotional distance between them and maybe even their kids or maybe even their extended family. They feel like they have lost their authority. They no longer, give little Johnny the rules or reinforce the rules of the home with little Susie. Sometimes there's alcohol misuse. These are the people who find some sense of safety or solace, I should say, in drinking alcohol, just to get away from it all, just to forget about whatever, just to numb, the emotional pain. For some, it's social isolation. You never see them. They don't go to church because they have bruises on their face and their husband tells them you better not show up, or they stay in their room or they stay at home, and there's a social isolation. They can't make decisions. People ask them, can you do this? Can you, help with that? Can you bake, a cake for the cake sale, for the missionary alliance or whatever? And they can't make decisions. They cannot give you a yes or a no. And they have very poor communication. They don't know who they can tell, who they can contact, whatever. So here's the question. If you're just tuned in these last 5 or 6 minutes or so, we're talking about intimate partner violence. We're talking about coercive control. We're talking about the psychopath that is, again, abusing the codependent partner. So what can be done? So again, for the pastors out there, here is your outline, starting with the letter P. This person needs a safe place. This person needs a safe place. place. So if you're experiencing intimate partner violence, you need to find a safe place, whether it be a shelter, whether it be your grandparents' home, whether it be your parents' home, or whatever it may be, but you need a safe place. And you need to let them know what's going on. And you need to tell your friends that if I contact you at 2:00 in the morning, I need you to open the doors, and here's why. If a person's experiencing intimate partner violence, you need a plan. I've told, in most cases, wives, I've told them, you need to have a big satchel, a big purse, a big briefcase or whatever. And in that, you need to have some extra cash, credit card. You need to have a burner phone. You need to have maybe some snack bars. You need to have a bottle of water. You need to have a brief change of clothing. You need to have all these things, and that for you and for your kids, that you can pick it up, grab it in a hurry, throw it in the car, and get out of there in the event that you are being abused. Have a plan. You need to have a plan. You need to talk to friends, coworkers, family members that, hey, if this happens, I need you to know this is what's going on. But you need to have a plan. You need to have the police. It's okay to call the police. It's okay to have this on record. It's okay to have a police report filed. It will come in handy later on if this becomes even worse, but you need to call the police. And a person says, but I need to forgive him. I need to forgive him, then call the police. Okay. But you need a place, you need a plan, you need the police. A person also needs another person who can help guide them. Sometimes you may not be able to think clearly. Someone that can console you, someone that can help you to problem solve. A person also needs a psychotherapist. Your kids need to talk about what's going on. Your kids and you need to feel safe. Your kids also and you need to feel supported. So again, a psychotherapist is very helpful, or a counselor, or a pastor. Hopefully, pastors, you're sometimes at the front lines and you cannot turn away from this.
Yeah.
Children need to process the trauma. They need a safe, stable environment. Victims need coping strategies. They need social connection, and they need coping skills. So one more time, in our closing 2 minutes, if you've just tuned in, Pastor, I hope you have, but here's a word to the pastors of those parishioners who are experiencing intimate partner violence, who are experiencing coercive control. This happens in your church. Pastors, this happens in your church. Don't look the other way. Pastors, don't look the other way. So many churches, so many pastors are now being exposed for not doing something when they got word that a child was being abused, that a child was being molested, that a wife was being beat up. Don't look the other way. And pastors, please, 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 don't get caught up in the submission excuse. Don't get caught up. That will not fly.
Yeah.
If your sister, if your mother is being beat up by her boyfriend or by her husband, I assure you, Pastor, you will not get caught up in just be submissive. No, don't get caught up in the submissive excuse. Next, the most vulnerable in your church needs you. The most vulnerable in your church, they need you. And you need to be that watchman on the wall. You need to be that warrior. You need to be that person that says, not in my church. We will not tolerate abuse, misuse, coercive control. You, again, are to be the front lines because the most vulnerable need you. Next, don't be intimidated by the power-hungry psychopath in your church. I'll say that again. Don't be intimidated by the power-hungry psychopath in your church. And Pastor, you know who I'm talking about. There are power-hungry psychopaths in your church, and some of them have been elevated into leadership positions. Don't be intimidated by them. They will try to intimidate you. They'll try to control you. They'll try to tell you what to preach, when to preach, how to preach, where to preach, if you should preach, and the list could go on. Don't be intimidated by them. You're to be a warrior. You're to be a watchman on the wall. Because when intimate partner violence is exposed, that's when it begins to lose its control. That's when it begins to lose its influence. And the church should be on the front lines to protect the families, to protect the children, to protect the women, in some cases to protect the men from this intimate partner violence, from this coercive control. We are called, again, to make sure that we as families, as husbands, as leaders who follow Jesus, we're to make sure that, again, the families are protected and taken care of. That's why the Apostle Paul says that a man who does not provide for his own family is worse than an infidel. Same Bible that has John 3:16 has that scripture in it as well. So again, pastors, parents, do all that you can to keep intimate partner violence out of your home.
Well, there you have it from the Family Answer Man. I hope that this episode will encourage you and inspire you to make changes that will lead to a healthier, stronger, happier family.